In theory, crypto is decentralized, meaning nobody can seize or freeze your funds. In practice, this happens almost every day, usually in response to criminal activity. Some say it's a good thing, while others argue that freezing assets goes against crypto's very ethos. After all, if a central authority can lock up your funds, crypto isn't much better than traditional banks, or even CBDCs. The craziest part is that it's not just stablecoin issuers freezing funds, it's major blockchains. So, when a report revealed which blockchains have censorship enabled, we knew we had to take a closer look. My name's Lewis, and let's dive in. Before we go any further though, you need to know that I'm not a financial advisor and nothing in this video is financial or investment advice. It's educational content that summarizes the recent crypto report. If that sounds good to you, then prove it by punching that like button and let's get into it. The report we'll be summarizing for you today comes from cryptocurrency exchange ByBit and is titled, quote, Blockchain Freezing Exposed. Examine the impact of fund freezing ability in blockchains. As always, we'll be summarizing the key highlights for you here in this video, but you're welcome to check out the full report with the links in the description below. Now, the report begins by explaining what fund freezing or blacklisting actually is. In short, it's when a protocol locks a user's crypto assets without their consent. As mentioned in the introduction, blacklisting is typically used to prevent criminal activity by freezing the assets of malicious actors, which many see as beneficial from a regulatory and security perspective. However, others argue that blacklisting undermines the trustless, permissionless nature of crypto and sets a precedent for centralized censorship and control. This is a philosophical discussion that is, well, quite frankly, outside the scope of this video. But back to the report. The authors explain that the blacklisting debate was reignited in May this year after the Sui Foundation froze assets stolen from the Cetus DEX. After the incident, ByBit's Lazarus Security Lab team investigated 166 blockchains to find any hidden fund freezing capabilities, since most apparently don't disclose these features publicly. What's cool is that ByBit did this using AI, and the exact prompts used to shape the AI models are detailed in the back of the report, along with any challenges that it ran into. We'll skip the details for the sake of time, but it's important to remember that these findings came from AI. So, what were the findings? Well, 16 blockchains have freezing capabilities, and another 19 could potentially add them in the future. This means that 16 cryptocurrencies can currently blacklist wallet addresses. In other words, banning them from interacting with the network. Of the 16 identified chains, there were 3 main methods for blacklisting accounts. The first method was hard-coded freezing, also known as public blacklisting. This is when the blacklist is directly integrated into the blockchain's code. This method is relatively transparent, since the list of blocked addresses can often be publicly visible on code bases like GitHub. Hard-coded blacklists require a full hard fork to add or remove banned addresses, which is why only the protocol's developers or other authorized parties can manage them. Of the 16 chains identified as having blacklist features, 5 use hard-coded freezing. In the order of market cap, these are BNB Chain, VeChain, XDC Network, Chiliz, and VeChain, whatever that is. The second method is a bit more technical, and that's config file-based freezing, also known as private blacklisting. To keep things simple, this is where blacklists are managed in configuration files, rather than being hard-coded into the protocol itself. Unlike public blacklisting, private blacklisting is only available to validators, foundations, and core developers. Obviously, private blacklists aren't transparent like public ones, making this the most controversial of the 3 blacklisting methods. And yet, it's also the most widely used, adopted by 10 blockchains. In order of market cap, these are Sui, Aptos, Volta, formerly the EOS network, Linea, Oasis, Waves, Harmony, Wax, Supra, and Hava, whatever that is. And the third blacklisting method is on-chain smart contract freezing, used by only one blockchain, the Heco chain, aka the Huobi Echo chain. Notably, Heco was shut down in January this year, a detail the report overlooks, likely due to ByBit's AI model. Anyway, this method allowed admin addresses to add banned addresses directly to an on-chain blacklist, avoiding the need for a hard fork or validator restarts. Oh, and by the way, if you're looking to buy and trade crypto, then you have to check out the Coin Bureau deals page. That's where you'll find exchange sign-up bonuses of up to $100,000, trading fee discounts of up to 50%, and deposit cashbacks of up to 75% on the best crypto exchanges. Just hit the link in the description or scan this QR code, which will take you right to the deals page. There, you'll see all of our offers across a range of exchange partners. Simply click one of the Sign Up Now buttons, and that should take you right to the deal. These deals won't be around forever though, so take advantage of them while you still can using the link in the description below or by scanning the QR code on the screen now. Now, in the next part of the report, ByBit zooms in on some of the more notable findings during their research. In total, there are 5 standout cryptos that have added blacklist features to their protocols, some of which may surprise you. The first finding was something we touched on earlier, which relates to Sui. Back in May this year, a Sui DEX called Cetus was hacked, resulting in around $223 million of funds being stolen. According to the report, the hackers basically did this by using fake tokens to manipulate the prices of Cetus's liquidity pools. This dealt a major blow to the Sui ecosystem, and the Sui Foundation wasn't about to take it lying down. So they activated Sui's protocol-level fund freezing mechanism to add the hackers' addresses to a public blacklist. As such, they managed to freeze $162 million of the $223 million that was stolen. Not a bad result, but freezing funds only solved part of the problem. So the Sui team took it one step further. After a governance vote that passed with over 90% approval, the Sui team recovered the funds directly from the hacker's address. Kinda scary knowing that this level of power exists, eh? Now, here's where things get interesting. The attack on the Sui ecosystem actually caused Aptos to implement similar blacklisting features of its own. This is significant because Sui and Aptos share a lot in common. Both were created using the Move programming language by former Meta engineers after its failed Libra project was abandoned. However, ByBit's research revealed that unlike Sui, which had public blacklisting features since April 2023, Aptos didn't implement theirs until July of this year, roughly 6 weeks after the Cetus hack. What's crazy though is that there doesn't seem to have been a governance vote for these features to be added. People only found out about them when the update was implemented. But that's just the first notable thing ByBit found. The second notable finding relates to the BNB chain, which suffered a major exploit back in October of 2022 when a cross-chain bridge was hacked. The hacker was able to exploit something called the IAVL tree-proof verification. Without getting technical, this is a system that checks if transactions between the BNB chain and the Binance Smart Chain token hub are legit. The hacker noticed that the verification process skips certain checks and took advantage of this. They were able to forge withdrawal proofs, allowing them to mint 2 million BNB out of thin air, resulting in $570 million in losses. What's wild though is that to prevent further damage, the BNB chain team actually worked with validators to pause the entire blockchain. They then hard-coded the hacker's address into a public blacklist, freezing the stolen funds on-chain. Notably though, BNB didn't even have fund freezing capabilities until they added them in response to this attack. Obviously, this is a similar story to the situation with Sui that we discussed earlier. The key difference though is that Sui's blacklist is managed privately in the config files of Sui's validators, and possibly the Sui Foundation. With BNB though, the blacklist is publicly visible to anyone. Intriguingly, if you check out the actual blacklist on GitHub, you'll see only 3 addresses. To be fair, that's pretty impressive, considering the blacklist feature was added back in 2022. This suggests that all 3 wallet addresses were controlled by the hacker. More importantly though, it suggests that BNB has never had to blacklist anyone else since then. Now, the third notable finding in the report relates to Cosmos. Unlike Sui, Aptos, and the BNB chain, which have fund freezing capabilities hard-coded into the protocol deliberately, Cosmos has code that could potentially be modified to allow blacklisting. What this means is that the code can't yet be used for blacklisting, but could be used that way in the future. Specifically, the Cosmos SDK has special accounts called module accounts. These aren't regular user accounts. They're controlled by the system's module logic rather than anyone's private key. Module accounts are unable to perform any kind of normal transaction. Instead, they're responsible for specific protocol functions, such as staking, governance, and token distribution. Each module account has a function called blocked address, which is basically just a list of other module accounts. The idea is to prevent wallets, including other module accounts, from transacting with module accounts, and to help prevent any money being moved by module accounts in the event of a hack. The report notes that, in theory, these module accounts could be tweaked to add other addresses to the blocked address function, essentially blacklisting them. But there is a huge caveat. None of the projects in the Cosmos ecosystem have ever actually used blacklisting in this way. That's a huge deal, especially when you consider that Cosmos is made up of dozens of apps running their own separate blockchains. The report also points out that if Cosmos ever did decide to add these changes in the future, this would require a full hard fork, as well as a bunch of other code changes. Note that Cosmos blockchains wouldn't be forced into hard forking to add the same features. But it goes without saying that this would create some tension in the Cosmos ecosystem. And given how Cosmos has underperformed much of the rest of the crypto market lately, that's the last thing that they need to do right now. Topic for another time. Anyways, the fourth notable finding relates to the unique blacklisting methods used by the Heco chain, which you'll recall was actually shut down in January of this year. That said, we still think it's important to understand Heco's blacklisting methods, simply because we're honestly surprised that smart contract blacklists aren't more widely used across the crypto industry. To refresh your memory, Heco allowed admins to add addresses to the blacklist directly, providing two efficiency benefits. First, the blacklist was updated instantly, and second, there was no need for hard forks or validator restarts. From our perspective, this is surely the easiest way to manage a blacklist. Though, full disclosure, none of us here at the Coin Bureau are coding wizards. Anyway, the report explains how Heco's blacklists actually worked. First, the protocol checks its in-memory data for the blacklist associated with the previous block. If the last update happened a while ago and the list isn't there, the system simply goes back one block at a time until it finds it. And if the blacklist still isn't in memory, it goes straight to the smart contract on the blockchain to fetch it. Once the blacklist is located, it updates to add new addresses to the blacklist, preventing them from sending or receiving funds. The updated list is then stored in the protocol's data, making it much easier to find next time. Nodes could simply read updates in the smart contract, rather than having to restart to update the protocol's code. Notably though, only the team's contract admin, which typically use either a multi-sig wallet or a governance account, had the permission to update the blacklist. This means that although Heco's blacklist method was efficient, it also placed an awful lot of power in the hands of just a few individuals. Come to think of it, this could be exactly why this method isn't more widely used. Now, the fifth and final notable finding relates to VeChain, which has a huge wall of blacklisted addresses. The report explains this, although it's a little light on the details. Basically, the VeChain Foundation suffered a direct hack in December of 2019, where $6.6 million worth of VET tokens were stolen from the foundation's official buyback wallet. Ouch. What the report doesn't explain is what actually happened. Shortly after the incident, VeChain CEO Sunny Liu explained that the attack was a result of negligence from a member of VeChain's finance team, who set up a temporary buyback wallet on a non-compliant computer, with the intention of moving the funds to offline storage. However, that computer was infected with a Trojan virus, allowing hackers to recover deleted data, including the private key to the buyback wallet. To be fair, plenty of us have made mistakes with our private keys, but I'm not sure many of us have made the mistake that affected an entire protocol and resulted in $6.6 million of losses. In any case, the problem was quickly identified by the VeChain team, who managed to prevent the funds from being liquidated by blacklisting every address associated with the hacker, all 469 of them. Crazy stuff. In total, the hacker made off with 1.1 billion VET tokens, but thanks to the VeChain Foundation's quick response, they were able to freeze about 727 million of those tokens, according to reports at the time. Not a perfect outcome by any means, but definitely not a bad one either. And with that, we've reached the end of this report. Well, sort of. There is another section that explains how ByBit used prompts to train its AI research assistant and the roadblocks it faced when examining different blockchains. If you want to dig into these yourself, you're more than welcome to check out the full report. Remember, you can find it in the description below. Now, as you can see, blacklisting in crypto is highly controversial. It's like a battle of two evils. Do we allow hackers to cause huge financial damage to a protocol and its investors? Or do we give a select few enough power to potentially control our life savings? Do we work to preserve the value of decentralization? Or do we do what we can to protect investors? Naturally, there's no way to answer this question and please everyone. As controversial as it may be, our view is that blacklisting shouldn't be ruled out, so long as it's only used when absolutely necessary. Put simply, it should be reserved for situations where it prevents serious, systemic harm. That could mean protecting a protocol from collapsing, stopping investors from watching their portfolios go to zero, or preventing criminal financing. Safety first, people. That said, this safety naturally comes at the expense of censorship resistance, and it's a huge expense at that. The thing is, freezing funds at the blockchain level is just one threat to censorship resistance. Another comes from the application or protocol level. For example, a DeFi platform could refuse withdrawals from certain addresses. A bridge could block transfers it deems high risk. And in theory, smart contracts could include their own fund freezing features, just like how we saw with Heco. There's also several well-documented cases where stablecoin issuers have frozen assets, usually in coordination with law enforcement agencies. For example, in October of 2023, Tether froze 32 addresses linked to terrorism and warfare. Basically, Tether restricted the send USDT function of these wallets, resulting in over $800,000 in illicit USDT being frozen. Notably, this was a relatively small freeze. Back in May 2024, Tether froze $5.2 million in USDT across 12 wallets tied to phishing scams. They also froze $46 million of USDT from FTX when it collapsed in 2022, at the request of the DOJ. And it's not just Tether. Circle's done its fair share of freezing too, like in May this year when it froze $58 million of USDC connected to the Libra meme coin scandal. Naturally, these re-sparked the debate, especially since USDT and USDC are dollar-backed stablecoins. This centralized control is exactly what we're trying to avoid with CBDCs, which can likewise be frozen by a central authority. Many viewed this as the start of a very slippery slope. Aside from this, though, another threat to crypto censorship resistance is KYC requirements, which are becoming more commonplace as regulators around the world struggle with crypto regulation. While KYC is important from a compliance point of view, the reality is that exchanges, custodians, or on-ramps requiring KYC can flag or even restrict transactions from certain users. So, even if the underlying blockchain is permissionless, these regulatory compliance measures create practical censorship points that limit the ability of users to transact freely. To make matters worse, many regulators around the world are pushing requirements for digital ID, which are arguably even more dystopian than CBDCs. For instance, the EU is rolling out a European digital identity wallet under its eIDAS 2.0 framework. Simply put, this could become a mandatory bridge between real-world identities and blockchain interaction. If other global players follow suit, regulators or intermediaries could start monitoring, restricting, or even blocking transactions based on identity. That would hit privacy and censorship resistance hard and push us closer to a dystopian world where every move you make is tracked and controlled. In the long term, this could create a splintered crypto economy. Some crypto projects will focus on compliance, which may even come at further costs of censorship resistance. For instance, they could prioritize KYC and transaction monitoring, or could even place certain limits on transactions. At the same time, other crypto projects will double down on censorship resistance. Fortunately, crypto already has built-in defense in this regard. Decentralization makes networks harder to control, and privacy coins like Monero, Zcash, and Dash let users keep their transactions shielded from surveillance. As regulators push for more oversight, these tools could become the last line of defense for financial privacy. And if you want to learn more about privacy coins, then you should really check out our most recent video update on that right over here. And with that, it's going to be all from me today. So if you want to see what's next for crypto in Q4, well, you should check out that video right over here. And if you want to see how tokenized RWAs could take over crypto, well, check out that video right over here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again very soon. It's Lewis, signing off.